Hi there, this is Dr. Beeman, and welcome to Ticket to Success in Your Capstone. Hurrah! You have arrived at the capstone. The capstone is named that because it is traditionally the last stone that is placed in an archway after everything that supports the archway has already been laid. And you've got a great foundation here at Aspen University for your education, and you're putting that final crowning capstone in your educational degree process. However, this is a project like none you have ever done before, and you're used to writing 3 to 5 page papers, and this one is going to be at least 35 and upward. So you must use our sections. You may read other people's capstones and say, how come it doesn't ask for a research question and it doesn't ask for this, that, and the other? Those are not our sections. You need to use our sections, and you must use APA format. Those are absolutes. So you begin by writing the introduction. Get the reader excited about your passion. My dissertation actually started talking about the Revolutionary War and how a disaster came to America. And General Cornwallis, a British general, was ill-equipped for it, didn't get reinforcements, and lost a key battle that ended the Revolutionary War. We are Americans today because he was ill-equipped for a disaster. And that's how I began my dissertation on disaster mitigation. That's the kind of passion you need to have in your introduction. You need to suck the reader in, state why this topic is not only just important to you, but why it is important to the future of nursing. Discuss a gap in knowledge, skills, or attitude, and how important that is to nursing. Then the next section that you write is the purpose of your educational activity. The focus should be linked to the gap that you just identified. So in other words, how will this activity fill that gap? So if you say people just really do not understand the impact of mental illness or heart disease or whatever it is, and your activity is going to fill that gap. The purpose is not just your selfish purpose that you want to get an MSN or you want to educate people. That is not the purpose. The reader doesn't care about that. The purpose of the activity is to fill the gap that you've already gotten the reader excited about. What is the purpose to nursing? The next, and probably one of your largest sections, is going to be the literature review. So before you launch out and say, this is the best possible solution to this subject that I'm passionate about and that I have this solution to, you need to look at how other people have solved similar problem, or what other research there is out there about your topic that's going to inform your educational activity. The literature review is mostly about other people's research, but it is an exhaustive, and I'm going to repeat that, it is an exhaustive discussion of what others have done. You have to link it to how this project fits into the gap that you identified into the introduction and provides this evidence for evidence-based research to support your project. It provides evidence as to the need for your activity because other people are writing about it, so therefore it's significant. When you're covering your literature review, you're going to want to group like articles together. So if you were writing, for example, about concussion, you might group a bunch of articles about sports-related concussion, and then a bunch of articles about traumatic brain injury secondary to motor vehicle accidents. You might put a bunch of different kinds of teaching activities similar to your own teaching activities. You might put some requirements that different counties other than your own have instituted, but you would group like journals together. The first paragraph of the literature review answers the question that you would have normally had on ground, which is how can you prove you've exhausted all the research? Now, back in my day, it meant did you read everything in the library? But unfortunately, in our age, It's have you exhausted all databases in the universe? So it's not good enough to say I went to ProQuest. Did you go to CINAHL? Did you go to PubMed? Did you go to Google Scholar? Where did you go and how many databases and which ones did you choose? And were they important? If you were doing concussions in school, you might want to look into ERIC, which deals with educational institutions. So what terms did you use and why did you select those terms? Why are they germane to your problem? How many did you yield? So if, for example, when you did those search terms in those databases, you yield 1,469, you are not going to be talking about those in this paper. So how did you narrow it down? Did you say, oh, well, then I said only in the last 3 years, or only in the United States, or only in outpatient, or only in a certain type of venue? If you didn't yield very many, and that's what happened with my dissertation, that I had a very understudied population. So how did I expand it? I actually had to include physician training and paramedic training and respiratory therapist training because I didn't have enough to really have a good lit review without it. And then you explain that to have a good lit review, I had to actually step outside of medical assisting, which was what my population was. So then the method is yours. Everything above it was sort of, this is what's happening in nursing. Now we're going to really narrow down to what is the problem in your local jurisdiction. What did you design? What educational, your major is education. So what method did you use that was designed to fill the gap that you identified in the introduction and the purpose? Did you choose a qualitative method or a quantitative method? And why? Did you do a pre and a post test to sort of document and quantify learning? Or did you do a survey to ask the quality of your educational activity? How many participants did you have and why did you have that number? It may just be that's who was enrolled in the class. Or it may be that you carefully selected stakeholders to represent a different population. How did you recruit these stakeholders? Did they just show up to a class, or did you actually have them review a plan or a process that you're putting into place? And then you very carefully selected them because you thought that they were experts and would give you good feedback. If you needed IRB, if you are actually going to be asking them questions about themselves or gathering any demographics, then we need to be very careful that you obtain that before you collect any data, and that must be referred to in this section, how you went about that, how you got that approval, and in the appendix you must have those IRB documents. But mostly, probably you're not going to be using an IRB. So you need a statement that says that an IRB was not needed because you focused on gathering data about your project, your activity, for the purpose of quality improvement and not really to gather data about the participants. And then any limitations were identified, a very small sample size, a convenient size, that you felt that there weren't good representation in the participants that showed up. They were very tired. It was a bad time of day, whatever you think the limitations might be. And then what did the data show? It's very good if you ask pointed questions. For example, if you just start out by saying, what did you think of this study we did? Then you're going to get a lot of people saying it was great. If you say, list 2 things you didn't know before my presentation, or list 3 ways it could be improved, you're going to get better data. And then your recommendations is how you would disseminate the findings. What career professional seminars are you going to show it at? How are you going to disseminate it that will impact nursing? Now add references, appendices, like surveys, tests, IRB documents, if you use those, simulation scripts, and finally, your table of contents goes up at the front. Then you write an abstract at the very end that goes after the title page but before the table of contents. So it's not referred to in the table of contents because it precedes it. It should be 120 words or less that just summarizes your stuff. Introduction, purpose, method, findings, and recommendations. It's not about other people's research. Then italicize the word keywords and colon and put the keywords there that might be used for retrieval. As you're writing your iterations, please submit them to me by email. Only use that email address, because any other address you have for me, your file will get too large for me to open. Do not put it in the final Dropbox until the second reader after me. After I read it, it goes to a second reader. The second reader has to approve it before you put it in the final Dropbox. Your oral defense will be in a Zoom room. You do not need to rehearse. It's a very easy technology. Prepare about 20 minutes or 20 slides as though you were presenting at a conference. Spell check and grammar check. We'll ask a few questions afterwards, but be sure to have a photo ID, a web camera on your computer, and the slides on your computer, and we'll be able to see your computer rather easily. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me on 434-989-4856. Thank you.